Drunken Russian soldiers scattered terror. Unbelievable act. The material damage and destruction left by the war on armies can be easily identified. The stocks can be updated instantly when the enemy destroys ammunition, weapons, vehicles, and materials elements in the hands of these states. However, it may not be easy to identify the damage caused by the war on the soldiers. It is a mistake to think that military casualties in terms of numbers alone. Sometimes living soldiers are as good as dead. If the discipline of the troops began to break down, the two can be considered casualties. Most commanders with a combat experience say the discipline is the most important factor in an army. Undisciplined armies are considered to be disorganized collection of people who are incapable of fighting. In fact, discipline is the most important factor that distinguishes modern armies from others. Problems in the chain of command in military units caused great suffering in first conflict. The Russian army also shows us its shortcomings in terms of discipline in certain periods. Since the beginning of the war, the problem of Russian soldiers with alcohol and addiction have come to light. It is known that Russian soldiers consume large amounts of alcohol to relax, to calm down at the front. This is also the reason why late hours are generally preferred the attacks on Ukraine. Under the influence of alcohol, Russian soldiers are unable to resist. Heavy alcohol consumption is known to be a major problem for armies. Soldiers who consume alcohol to reduce the stress of war actually cause bigger problems. A recent development in this regard has been mind-boggling. 3 Russian soldiers drunk with alcohol blew themselves up with a grenade. Now, if you're ready, let's examine the details of this scandalous incident together. The scandalous incident, which felt like a bomb on the agenda, stunned those who heard of it. 3 Russian soldiers who were drunk during the resupply in the Voronezh region in the southwestern part of Russia died as a result of the explosion of a grenade. As a result of the information obtained about the incredible incident, it was determined that the drunken soldiers were in the house in the city of Rososh. The soldiers, intoxicated with alcohol, detonated the grenade while they were at home. After the explosion, 3 Russian soldiers lost their lives and 2 soldiers were injured. Russian authorities reported that 3 people were killed in the grenade explosion. However, they choose not to disclose the identities of these affected by the explosion. The regional authorities did not make any comments or any statements on the matter. Local sources confirmed that the grenade was detonated in a rented house. The house, which was rented by 5 Russian soldiers, is known to be point of the origin of the explosion. According to the eyewitnesses, the Russian soldiers who rented the house had a barbecue and a meal in the evening. Afterwards, the soldiers who consumed more and more alcohol started to make noise in the neighborhood. Later in the night, there were noise and drunken conversations heard by bystanders. Finally, a powerful explosion echoes from the house. Residents jumped out of their bed in alarm and suspected a Ukrainian operation. But after investigations, it turned out that the Russian soldiers had detonated themselves. The Russian soldiers who died as a result of the explosion had gone to the region on a mission. Tasked with buying military equipment from warehouses in Rososh, Russian soldiers went beyond the call of duty. All 5 Russian soldiers who rented the house were serving as Central Military District personnel. The Russian soldiers consumed alcohol while on duty, once again demonstrating the state of the Russian military. The soldiers who were sent to the region for 3 days to complete mission and make delivers failed to complete the mission. After the explosion, 3 soldiers came out of the house and 2 remained inside. After the soldiers left the house, there was another explosion. Another soldier was killed in the second explosion. As a result of the findings, it was determined that F1 type grenade exploded. The Russian soldiers who lost their lives in the explosion were serving in the professional army. They were performing critical tasks such as minefield works, bridge construction, demolition, road and airport construction in the Russian army. Soldiers, popularly known as the combat engineers, are known for facilitating the movement of armies. The geographical conditions of the war and the general situation cause armies to experience major logistics and engineering problems. The Russian army, which cannot do what it wants in the fields of logistics and construction, is also losing its talent soldiers in this field. The self-explosion of the group known as the combat engineers as a result of their behavior unbecoming of military discipline caused a great reaction among the public. The news of comments made by the thousands of people on the social media revealed their reactions. Russian citizens often make comments criticizing the states of the army. In particular, harsh measures are demanded to be taken regarding alcohol consumption within the army. But it is thought that the fighting troops do not only consume alcohol. Along with the alcohol, other addictions are also known to be common among soldiers. Heavy alcohol consumption by Russian military units has led to high casualties to date. But the Russian leadership continues to ignore this problem. The Kremlin avoids sharing data on the alcohol consumption. The Kremlin administration, which is about to defeat it in the psychological war waged after the occupation, is deliberately using alcoholic soldiers at some points. According to information obtained from local sources in previous month, the Russian army used drunken soldiers to locate Ukrainian troops in the occupied territories. The alcohol crisis on the Russian front has become more serious since Kiev launched its counteroffensive. It is not surprising that Russian soldiers are turning to alcohol to relax. Drinking in the army was a common practice until pre-modern times, as alcohol was believed to give soldiers courage. In particular, Russian military units in the past fought with high levels of vodka consumption. But the mistakes that resulted from this widespread consumption was fatal. Remains found by the Ukrainian army in captured Russian positions shows that Russian soldiers consumed not only alcohol but also drugs. In the early days of the war, the prisoners and recruits who were sent to the front struggled to perceive the discipline within the army. However, the addiction that spread through the army affected the soldiers at the front. Losses at the front and the withdrawal of the Russian troops caused Russian soldiers to suffer from depression. The fact that the Russian troops do not receive the support they need and they exposed to intense Ukrainian attacks on the front line causes psychological depression in the soldiers. Alcohol and drug consumption, which are preferred as a method of escape from problems, cause even bigger problems. Military experts believe that developments in the Russian army will lead to a widespread problems in the future. Recent events confirms these predictions. The news of surrender of the Russian soldiers is increasing day by day. Likewise, reports of psychological behavior of the Russian soldiers are also increasing. Short time ago, we reported that a Russian soldier detonated a grenade in the city. While the incident is still fresh, a second scandal shows that Russian authorities need to deal with this issue. What do you think about the alcohol consumption of the Russian soldiers on duty? How do you interpret Russian soldiers blowing themselves up in the house they rented under the influence of alcohol? Do you think the addiction and heavy alcohol consumption of soldiers in the Russian army increases war losses? How do you interpret the situation of the Ukrainian army? What do you think discipline means for an army? We care about your opinion. Please share it with us.